It's Sandy Parker, and welcome to Crafting for Almost Everyone. Well, today we're going to be making an easy slide and stand card that I saw on another YouTube channel called Mixed Up Craft, and I thought it would be really fun to use the technique we learned from Impression Obsession at the last stamp show, and it's this card. I'm making the card after this video, but you're going to see it now, and it flattens out. I made the background like we did in the video, and I wanted to tell you two things before we start the video. The first is that this card can be made very simply. That's by using one of these paper pads, and what you do is you go to trying to find one. Of course, you can never find one when you need it. You go to one of these sections where it says you've got this, or making magic, or just go for it. You would choose one of these that would match your paper, and then you cut your paper to cover it. So that could be a very simple way of doing it. But I really wanted to use that background technique I learned. I also wanted to use the new Wendy Vecchi inks, and so I did that as well. And I wanted to tell you something before we start, and that is you don't have to use background stamps, the big stamps, to make these techniques. I used a stencil, and this is the stencil I used, as well as the stamps, but I'm thinking that you could also use any kind of smaller repetitive stamp. Just for an example, you could do a bunch of feathers all over. You could do a bunch of keys all over. You could do buttons. You don't have to use background stamps. All you need is something that covers space. As you can see, the stencil I only used it sporadically on here. So you could do the same with buttons or bows or whatever you wanted to do as far as stamping. You could do that, or you could have a bunch of big stencils. If you have one stencil this size, you could make that your primary background color and then go from there. But I just want you to know that you can do this technique if you don't have any background stamps. And then I'm hoping that you'll stay tuned and watch after this long discussion. I'm not going to do my technique the same way as they did it in the Impression Obsession booth. I'm going to be doing it a little bit differently, and I'm going to be doing 2 on 1 piece of paper, and I'll show you why in a little bit. So the first thing I'm using a bunch of old Stampin' Up stamps. This one I think is called rice paper. Yep, this one's called rice paper. And I'm going to start this one. I think I'm going to go with a little bit Prickly Pear. And then I'm going to just do a few spots with Prickly Pear. And then I'm going to do a little bit of Fern Green, which is a darker color. So it doesn't matter if I kind of go over these, if I go over the same spot twice. And the way I like to do big stamps like this is I like to put them face up on my board, and I like to put the paper over it like that. And we're just going to rub on it. And the thing I want to do on this side of the paper is I'm going to make a little mark so I know where my edge starts. That's not too bad for our first one. We're going to do the exact same thing, second verse, same as the first. I know you guys are going to be commenting on my nails. They're getting horribly long, and I need to cut them off because they're driving me crazy. But somebody told me that they think my nails look like they're artificial. I love that they think that, but they're not. They're mine. And I have always had to cut my nails since I've had arthritis because I don't do enough to really break them. And that's Oh, look how much better that one was. So that's really the reason why I have long nails, is because I don't really do anything to make them get snapped off. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to use this stamp, and it is called Tea House, and it has some like pretty little floral lines. And this one, I think I'm going to use all Cornflower Blue on it, because it reminds me of like Wedgwood china. Does that makes sense? I'm going to see if I can get the whole image this time. Well, it's not too bad. Not too bad. Okay, I'm going to do the second one, but I'm not going to make you watch me do the second one. I'll just show you when it's done. Oh, that wasn't as good as the first one, was it? That's okay, because we're not trying for perfection. I think the next thing I'm going to do is I have this little leafy stencil that I just got. Okay, we have this little stencil. And I know you're probably thinking, yeah, you already did green, Sandy. Yes, I know I already did green. But I think in this case, I'm going to do some yellow. And I'm going to use this brush. Now, I know she used the stippling brush. And I have a stippling brush, so we could play with that if you want to. At the event, where they were asking me about distressing tools. And I told them that I really, really like my little chip brushes. And I have not used these and done a good job of using them, so we're gonna give it a shot this time. And I want to move it so if I have a spot that doesn't have anything, like right in there, we don't have a lot of anything. I'm gonna go to my brush. These are 1-inch chip brushes, and I get them at Harbor Freight Liquidators. You get 36 of them for $10, and they usually have a 20% off coupon. So if they have the 20% off coupon, you're paying $8 for 36 of them. And I shared mine with a lot of people, and believe me when I tell you, they go a long way. Now I think I'm going to go into the orange blossom, because it shouldn't be a huge color change. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use my stencil. I get my orange brush. That is the thing you need to do, is you need to get a brush for every color. And all I did is I wrote on the side of it yellow. That one, and now I'm just going to do the edges of the other one. Okay, so next I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Prickly Pear, and I'm going to use, I think it's called On the Spot, or I made the name up. Let's see, does it have a name on it? No, it's just a polka dotted stamp from 1997, Stampin' Up. And this time we're going to go all Prickly Pear all over our little circles. Well, it's hard to see the little polka dots, but they're there. It's kind of cool. I think I might do more polka dots in a different color. I'm going to hold it up. Can you see the difference between this one and this one? There's no polka dots. See the polka dots? I think they're kind of frisky. I'm loving them. I might do another color in polka dots too. Maybe the orange blossom, but maybe not, you know, as heavy as I did. Ooh! Maybe not as heavy as I did the last grouping. This time, lining it up right like that. Here's the polka dots. They look fun. I like them. Do some more polka dots, only this time in sunflower. So then I'm going to use Crumb Cake. I found this script stamp, and I didn't have a light enough beige-ish ink to make it work, so I'm going with this Crumb Cake by Stampin' Up, and that's what we're going to stamp with. There's that one. What do you think? I like it. Okay, so now we're going to make our card. I thought I would show you how I'm going to trim my papers down. I wanted to make sure that I cut them out so that they are 5.5 inches wide. So I'm cutting it so that my bar ends up on the pattern like that, and then you're going to cut off this edge, making sure the pattern's there. You want the whole pattern to be there. And then I'm going to turn it over again because I want it to be 5.5, so I'm going to line it up on the 5.5 inch right there. And I'm going to make sure that I get all of the pattern here. And at the top you can see I don't have the whole pattern, so I'm going to move it up so that I have the whole pattern there. We're going to cut little strips of this. Okay, I need 4 that are 1.5 inches by 5.5 inches, and then I need 2 that are 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to do 1.5, and then, oops, then 1.5, and then we'll see if we have room for 3/4 here. Perfect. There's our 3/4. I'm going to keep this little strip. You never know, we might need it for something. Then this one we're going to cut 1.5. Move that over. And 1.5. And then our last piece needs to be 3/4 of an inch. That one. Then I cut a couple more pieces, and I'll show you those. I cut a green piece that is 5 7/8 inch tall by 4 5/8 inches wide. I always write everything down below. I know a lot of people ask me questions about, you know, what items I used, or how do I do this, or how do I do that. I want to make sure that all of my hearing impaired viewers will be able to follow along, and I've heard that the closed captioning that YouTube does is a little bit off. So I want to make sure that everyone that wants to be able to watch and view my videos can do so and understand exactly what goes on. So I write out step-by-step instructions, and I tell you all the things I use. I mean, I go into way more detail than I probably should. But with that being said, let me tell you the size of this. This piece is 5 3/4 inches tall by 4 1/2 inches wide. So it'll fit like that on our card. So let's take our big base that is 11 inches long by 5 3/4 inches tall, and we're going to need to do some scoring on that. And lately I've had people ask me about my scoreboard and where I got it. It's a Martha Stewart. It's a combination scoreboard and trim board, but the trim component of it doesn't work really well. But it's the only Martha Stewart board that comes with a stylus that attaches right into the machine. Or I guess it's not a machine, but we'll call it a machine. It's the only one that has one of these metal styluses. And the only other one that I know that's similar to this that has a metal stylus is the Stampin' Up one. Would it be a video of mine if my dog didn't bark? I don't think so. So that's the scoop there in case you're looking for a new score tool. That's what you're going to want to do. Okay, so we have quite a bit of scoring we need to do on this. We're going to score it at 1 inch. Ooh, I missed a little spot there. 2 3/4. 2 3/4. Listen to them. There you go. 3 3/4. I'm checking my measurements as I go, so that's why it's taking me so long. 5 1/2. 7 1/4. Ooh, I missed at the bottom. It jumped off. You don't want anybody jumping off. 8 1/4 and 10. 8 1/4. Noise. And 10. So now we're going to fold all of them up. What you're going to want to do is you're going to just do your basic folding. We just want to make sure our paper's, you know, ready to play. Okay. Then it's better if you do the decorating before you fold it all up. But we're not going to decorate it yet because we have one more. I put that down too soon. We have one more thing we need to do, and that is we need to do a little bit of cutting in here. Let me grab my paper cutter. I'll be right back. Not paper cutter, X-Acto knife, demon stick, craft tool. You know what I'm talking about. So we put it back in because we cut all the way to one end. So we have 1/2 inch, no cut. 1/2 inch, no cut on this side. We're using the scoreboard for this because we're using the little divot to make sure that our line that we're cutting is not just a teeny tiny line. It's going to be as wide as one of these score marks. So it's smart. Whoever came up with this idea, it's really smart because then you have ooh, a little bit, getting a little bit bigger. Then you have a bigger score, so you can put more paper in this. If you've never seen one of these cards before, it's kind of hard to explain until you see it. So we're just gonna so now our cut looks like this. Mine might be a little bit wider, but it's not that big a deal because I'm going to be putting more than one piece of paper in there. Okay, so the first thing I think we're going to do is we're going to decorate our panels here. So we have some wide panels and some shorter panels. And I'm going to get my tape runner. So what you're going to do, I'm going to show you how this works. You have a wide one, and a wide one, and a wide one, and a thin one, and then a wide one, and the other thin one goes right there. We want to make sure, if you could read your writing on yours, if you stamped it so you have writing on it, you want to make sure your writing is going in the same direction. And if you didn't, that's great, but I just want to make sure we all do it the same way. So let's go ahead and glue these bad boys down. Then we're going to be putting our tear tape on the tops of these sections, and then it's going to go like this. What's going to happen is we're going to have a piece that's going to pop up through there. Let me still trim that a little bit more. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put we're going to put these two pieces together and we're going to decorate this. Now, your decorations have to be as flat as possible because this is going to have to be able to go through that little slit. So if you have a bunch of, thick embellishments, you're not going to be able to get them to go through there. They're just not going to play with you. So you want this, you want to make sure that that's as thin as possible. Not as thick as possible, as thin as possible. And this is only 1/8 of an inch smaller. I'm going to make this our top, and this is going to be our bottom. Okay, first thing we need to do is get our sentiment. I think I like that new, I'm going to do that new sentiment I just got. So I got my ribbon and I tied it around, well, I glued it around the back, and then I have another little strip that I thought I cut off here, but there it is. And I thought what I would do with this is near the top I would put this in like that, and then all I'm going to do is put one tie. Then I'm going to cut these edges off. So we're all ready. We've got our ribbon on our card, and I pushed a piece of that pattern paper under it, so I'm hoping that it'll still work because I do have a pretty big cut in my centerpiece. So what we're going to do, you want to fold down the top score. This is our top score. I'm going to make sure we have any idea of which way the writing goes. Okay, we'll call this the top score because I have no idea. We're going to put this into the center. We're just kind of shoving it in for now. Then you want to make sure this is folded down, that top fold. The bottom fold you're going to fold up, and you're going to take your wrap lining off. Okay, we've got our bottom off. We're going to pull this down until it lines up with your bottom score and it's straight. Then you're going to take the tape off the top. Okay, here's what you do. You're going to fold this down. You're going to fold the top of your card down to the bottom of your card and just do that. And so then when the person gets the card, all they have to do, it's hard to see, I'll turn it on its side. When they get it, they're going to do this. Is that fabulous? And then when it goes in the envelope, it goes like that. Again, one more time, because I know you're impressed that I did this right. There's standing up, and then there's flat. So let's measure it to decide how big we need our envelope to be. In case you've never done this, if you have an envelope board, you don't have to worry about it, but if you don't have an envelope board, then you need to do what I'm doing. Okay, you're going to go from end to end. You're going to have to go from that point at the top to the end. It's about 8 inches, so you're going to make it 9 inches. So I'm going to get a piece of paper and cut it to 9 inches square, so it's going to be 9 by 9. You're going to put it in here so that it's square at the diamond, like that. And you're going to take your edges and fold them in, like that. Now, I'm hand delivering this, so I'm doing mine with the yellow on the outside. If you're going to be mailing it, then you're going to want to do it the other way. You're going to have the white on the outside. That makes sense? I hope it does. If you ever use paper that's a little bit too thick for you to work with, here's what I recommend. Take a stylus and run it the whole way across, like this. Then your paper will be a lot easier to fold up, and it'll be straight And the same with folding it in. We're just going to put it like this, run our stylus all the way up like that, and all the way straight down. Okay, and so then you've got all of your scores made, and you're going to cut those little corners out. I got something on my scissors already. How fun is that? This is for my nephew's birthday, so I don't think he's going to care. He's 35. He's not going to go, oh, look at how you didn't do that right. You know, when I'm talking about the edges aren't perfect. If you want your card to look better, or your envelope to look better, don't do the pattern size on the outside, because if you do it this way, you can definitely see the mistakes. Whereas if you would do it with the white side, which is what I'm going to change to right now, we're going to just fold it backwards. So there's our envelope, and here's our card. I hope that you enjoyed this, that you thought it would be fun to try. You can use pattern paper that you didn't go to all that effort with, but I thought I would show you that technique that we saw from the Impression Obsessions, and I wanted to try out my new inks from Wendy Vecchi, and both were lots of fun. I hope you try both, because they're all just so interesting to do. That background pattern is really fun. I hope you give this a thumbs up and subscribe. Please tell your friends about me on social media, because you know I love that. And thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.